The Silent Observer. In the far reaches of the galaxy, on a planet shrouded in an ethereal mist, lay Xylophia 4. This world was a marvel, with gardens that seemed to defy the laws of nature and architecture that blended seamlessly into the landscape. Here, the Xylophians, an enigmatic alien race, lived in harmony with their environment, their presence as subtle as the mist that enveloped their city. Eleanor Quasar, a 17-year-old human, had grown up on Xylophia 4. He was an anomaly among the Xylophians, yet he had found a strange sense of belonging. Eleanor's days were filled with exploring the gardens, sketching the intricate designs of the flora, and observing the Xylophians from a distance. He was fascinated by their elegance and the silent grace with which they moved. One day, as Eleanor sat near a row of luminescent flowers, he noticed a figure watching him. It was Queen Lyria, the ruler of the Xylophians. Her presence was commanding, yet she moved with a quiet elegance that belied her power. Her skin shimmered like the surface of a still pond, and her eyes were deep wells of mystery. Eleanor felt a shiver run down his spine as Queen Lyria approached him. She stood before him, her gaze piercing but not unkind. "You have been here for many days," she said, her voice a soft melody that seemed to resonate through the garden. "Why do you return?" Eleanor swallowed hard, unsure of how to respond. I find peace here," he stammered. "The gardens are beautiful." Queen Lyria nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. "Beauty is not just in what we see but in what we feel. You feel the garden, do you not?" Eleanor nodded, feeling a sense of wonder at her words. Queen Lyria turned to leave but paused. "Tomorrow, come to the central platform. I have something to show you." With that, she disappeared into the mist, leaving Eleanor with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Earth warship Aurora's Hope was on a mission to explore the unknown reaches of the galaxy. Captain Orion Blackwood stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the navigation screen as they approached Xylophia 4. "Captain, we're entering the planet's orbit," announced Lieutenant Zara Nexus, her voice crisp and professional. Captain Blackwood nodded. "Prepare a scouting party. We need to know what we're dealing with here." As the Aurora's Hope descended into Xylophia 4's atmosphere, the crew was unaware of the silent observer watching them from the planet's surface. Eleanor, with his sketchbook clutched tightly in his hand, felt a sense of unease. Something was about to change, and he was at the center of it. The night fell on Xylophia 4, casting a veil of darkness over the gardens. Eleanor lay in his small quarters, his mind racing with thoughts of the next day. What did Queen Lyria want to show him? And what would happen when the humans from the warship arrived? The unexpected encounter. The morning after Leo's tumultuous night, the gardens of Tyasia were eerily quiet. The mist that usually clung to the air had thickened, swirling in lazy spirals as though alive. It muffled sound, turning the soft crunch of Leo's boots into distant echoes. Everything looked the same as always, columns wrapped in vines, flowers pulsing faintly like bioluminescent creatures. Yet, something had changed. Leo felt it immediately as he entered the gardens. The Valari were already there, standing like statues in perfect formation along the central platform. They formed an aisle of sorts, leading to the queen who waited at the top of the staircase. She seemed brighter today, her form sharper as though the light itself bent to highlight her edges. Leo hesitated at the edge of the platform, his instinct screaming at him to turn around and go back to the safety of the station. But his feet moved anyway, drawn forward like the pull of a black hole. As he stepped between the rows of Valari, he couldn't stop himself from looking up at them. They were motionless, their faces unreadable, and yet he swore he could feel their eyes on him, each one drilling into his very being. Why am I here? Why did she choose me? Leo thought, his mind racing with questions. When Leo reached the base of the stairs, the queen raised her hand. The Valari turned in perfect synchrony, their backs now to him, forming a living wall of silver. Leo's stomach churned as he glanced up at the queen, who was watching him with that same faint smile. "Come," she said, her voice a soft hum that traveled through his bones. Leo climbed the steps slowly, his heart threatening to burst. When he reached the top, he realized that the platform wasn't just an elevated stage, it was an opening. At its center was a circular gap where the mist coiled and churned like a living sea. From it rose a soft hum, deep and mechanical, like the breathing of some great sleeping beast. The queen turned her head toward Leo. "You are afraid," she stated. Leo nodded, unable to form words. "Good," she said. "Fear reminds you of your limits." Leo opened his mouth to reply, but she was already stepping closer to the mist. Her robes trailed behind her, and the air seemed to ripple with her movement. "Come," she repeated. "Where are we going?" Leo croaked, his voice barely audible. The queen stopped at the very edge of the mist and turned back to him. "To truth," she said. Leo hesitated, but the queen's gaze was unyielding. Something in her posture told him he had no choice. He stepped forward, and as his foot touched the mist, a chill shot through his body. The world twisted as Leo plunged into the mist, disoriented and weightless. It wasn't a fall in the traditional sense, there was no up, no down, just a sickening pull in all directions. His skin prickled with energy, his ears filled with a sound he couldn't describe, something like music, laughter, and machinery all at once. And then it was over. Leo landed on solid ground with a jolt, gasping air as though he hadn't breathed in hours. When he opened his eyes, he froze. He was standing in a vast cavern, the walls made of dark polished stone that gleamed like onyx, stretching high into shadows above. The ceiling glowed faintly with veins of light pulsing blue and green, like the heartbeat of some ancient creature. The queen stood a few steps away, her gaze fixed on the center of the chamber. There, half buried in the stone, was something massive. Leo squinted through the gloom. It looked like the skeleton of a ship, hulking and angular, covered in symbols that glowed faintly like embers refusing to die. Tendrils of light snaked from the ship, weaving through the stone floor and up into the walls as though feeding the entire cavern. "What is this place?" Leo whispered. The queen's voice was soft but firm. "The heart of Tyasia. The truth of our people." Leo turned to her, confused. "You live above this. Why? What is it?" The queen finally looked at him, her expression unreadable. "A prison. A warning." Leo's mind spun. I don't understand." The queen tilted her head. "You will." As she stepped toward the ship, the air in the cavern seemed to thicken, the hum growing louder and vibrating through the stone beneath their feet. Leo could feel it in his chest now, a sound that wasn't just noise but meaning. He stumbled back as the queen raised her arms, the tendrils of light surrounding the ship flaring and spreading out like lightning. The cavern shuddered, dust raining down from the ceiling. "What's happening?" Leo shouted, panic rising in his throat. The queen turned to him, her dark eyes locked onto his. "You were chosen because you see. You understand. And now you will decide." "Decide what?" Leo's voice was barely audible over the growing noise. The queen's voice was calm, even as the cavern trembled around them. "Whether the Valari will remain as they are or be free." Leo stared at her, his mind unable to process her words. "Free? What do you mean?" "The Valari are perfect. They have everything, beauty, wisdom, power." But as he looked at the queen, at the ship pulsing behind her, he felt something beneath the surface of her calm, a crack in the mask. "Trapped," Leo realized aloud. The queen smiled faintly, and for the first time, it looked almost sad. "Yes," she said. "And you are the key. The hidden truth." As the cavern continued to shudder and the dust settled, Leo's mind struggled to grasp the enormity of what the queen had revealed. The Valari, these beings of perfect beauty and wisdom, were trapped. The idea seemed absurd, yet the Queen's words and the ancient ship before them spoke of a deeper truth. The Queen's gaze never wavered from Leo's face. You see, Leo, the Valari were not always as you know them. We were once a people like any other, with flaws and strengths, hopes and fears. But we sought perfection, and in our quest, we made a pact with an ancient power. Leo's eyes widened as he took a step back, his hand instinctively reaching for the wall to steady himself. A pact? What kind of pact? The Queen's expression remained serene, but a hint of sadness crept into her voice. A pact to achieve immortality and perfection. We were given the gift of eternal life, but at a cost. Our souls were bound to this world, to the gardens and the mist. We became guardians, statuesque and unchanging, forever trapped in this state. Leo's mind reeled as he looked around the cavern, at the ship and the symbols that glowed like embers. And this ship? What is it? It is the key to our freedom, the Queen said, her voice filled with a longing that Leo had never heard before. It is the vessel that brought us here, the vessel that can take us away. But it requires a choice that only you can make. As the Queen spoke, the air in the cavern began to clear, and the hum of the ship grew softer. Leo felt a weight settling on his shoulders, a responsibility he was not sure he could bear. Why me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The Queen stepped closer to him, her eyes locking onto his. Because you are not bound by our rules, Leo. You are free to choose. You can see us, truly see us, in a way that no one else can. And you have the heart to understand our plight. Leo took a deep breath, trying to process the enormity of what he was being asked to do. He thought of the Valari, of their beauty and their silence, and of the Queen's words, trapped. Just then, a loud rumble echoed through the cavern, followed by the sound of footsteps. The Queen's head turned toward the entrance, and her expression changed from one of longing to one of concern. What is it? Leo asked, his heart racing. It seems our visitors have arrived, the Queen said, her voice firm once more. The humans from the warship. They have found us. Leo's eyes widened as he turned toward the entrance. A group of humans, clad in military uniforms, emerged from the shadows. At their lead was Captain Orion Blackwood, his eyes scanning the cavern with a mix of awe and caution. Who are you? Captain Blackwood called out, his voice echoing off the walls. The Queen stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. I am Queen Lyria of the Valari. And you, Captain, are trespassing on sacred ground. Captain Blackwood's gaze narrowed. We mean no harm. We are explorers, seeking to understand the mysteries of the galaxy. The Queen's smile was faint but unmistakable. Understanding is a noble pursuit, Captain. But sometimes, the truth is more than one can handle. As the Queen spoke, Leo felt the weight of his decision growing heavier. He looked at the humans, at Captain Blackwood and his crew, and then back at the Queen and the ancient ship. The choice before him was clear, to free the Valari or to leave them trapped forever. The choice of destiny. As the cavern continued to shudder and the dust settled, Leo's mind was a whirlwind of emotions and questions. The Queen's words echoed in his mind, whether the Valari will remain as they are or be free. The weight of this decision was crushing, and Leo felt the eyes of both the Queen and the humans from the warship upon him. Captain Blackwood, who had been observing the scene with a mix of curiosity and caution, stepped forward. What is going on here? He asked, his voice firm but controlled. The Queen turned to him, her expression unwavering. This is a matter of our people, Captain. It does not concern you. Captain Blackwood's eyes narrowed. Anything that involves the safety of my crew and the mission of the Aurora's Hope concerns me. What is this ship? What is its purpose? The Queen's gaze never wavered. This ship is the key to our freedom. It is the vessel that brought us here, and it is the vessel that can take us away from this world. Lieutenant Zaranexis, who had been quietly observing the exchange, spoke up. If this ship is capable of interstellar travel, it could be a game-changer for humanity. We need to understand its technology. The Queen's smile was faint but firm. You do not understand what you are asking for, Lieutenant. This ship is not just a vessel, it is a prison. It holds the secrets of our past and the key to our future. But it also holds dangers that you cannot imagine. Leo felt the tension in the air escalate. The humans were intrigued by the ship's potential, while the Queen was adamant about its risks. He knew he had to make a decision, but the consequences of either choice were unclear. Leo, the Queen said, her voice soft but urgent. You must decide. Will you free us, or will you leave us trapped forever? Leo took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked at the Queen, at the ship, and then at Captain Blackwood and his crew. He thought about the Valari, about their beauty in their silence, and about the Queen's words, trapped. I need to know more, Leo said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. What will happen if I free you? What will happen if I don't? The Queen nodded, a small nod of understanding. If you free us, we will return to our true forms. We will be mortal again, with all the flaws and strengths that come with it. But we will also be free to explore the galaxy, to experience life as it was meant to be. And if I don't? Leo asked, his voice trembling. The Queen's expression turned sad. If you do not free us, we will remain as we are. Trapped in this world, forever bound to the gardens and the mist. But the humans will also be in danger. The ship's power is not to be underestimated, and if it falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy entire worlds. Leo's eyes met Captain Blackwood's, and he saw the determination there. The humans were willing to take the risk for the sake of progress and discovery. But Leo knew he couldn't make this decision alone. He needed to understand the true nature of the ship and its power. Arceus Thorn, the Queen called out, her voice echoing through the cavern. An elderly Valari stepped forward, his eyes wise and ancient. Yes, Your Majesty. Tell them the truth, the Queen said. Tell them what the ship holds and what the consequences of freeing us will be. Arceus Thorn nodded and began to speak, his voice filled with a deep wisdom. The ship holds the secrets of our past, the technology that allowed us to achieve immortality. But it also holds the power to destroy entire galaxies. If you free us, you must be prepared for the consequences. We will not be the same beings you see before you now. We will be flawed, mortal, and capable of both good and evil. Leo listened intently, his mind racing with the implications. He knew that he had to make a choice, but it was a choice that would affect not just the Valari, but the entire galaxy. As the silence hung in the air, Leo took a deep breath and made his decision. I will free you, he said, his voice firm and resolute. The Queen's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, Leo saw a glimmer of hope there. Then let us begin, she said, her voice filled with a newfound determination. The cavern began to shudder once more, the ship's power surging as the Queen raised her arms. The humans watched in awe as the symbols on the ship flared to life, and the air filled with an energy that seemed to defy the laws of nature. The New Horizon. As the cavern continued to shudder and the dust settled, Leo stood at the crossroads of a decision that would change the course of history. The Queen's words echoed in his mind, whether the Valari will remain as they are or be free. The weight of this choice was crushing, but Leo knew he had to act. With a deep breath, Leo made his decision. I will free you, he said, his voice firm and resolute. The Queen's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, Leo saw a glimmer of hope there. Then let us begin, she said, her voice filled with a newfound determination. The cavern began to shudder once more, the ship's power surging as the Queen raised her arms. The symbols on the ship flared to life, and the air filled with an energy that seemed to defy the laws of nature. The humans from the warship watched in awe, unsure of what was happening but sensing the magnitude of the moment. As the energy built up, the Valari began to change. Their statuesque forms began to shift, their bodies relaxing from their rigid poses. Their skin, once shimmering like liquid mercury, began to take on a more natural hue. They looked around, confused but alive, as if awakening from a long slumber. The queen was the last to change. She stood tall, her eyes fixed on Leo, as her form transformed. Her robes fell away, revealing a being of striking beauty but also of mortal frailty. She smiled at Leo, a smile that was no longer enigmatic but warm and human. "Thank you," she said, her voice now filled with emotion. "You have given us our freedom." The cavern fell silent as the Valari looked at each other, unsure of what to do next. They were no longer the perfect, timeless beings they once were, they were now mortal, flawed, and free. Captain Blackwood and his crew approached cautiously, observing the scene with a mix of wonder and caution. "What does this mean?" Captain Blackwood asked, his voice soft. The Queen turned to him. "It means we are no longer trapped. We can explore the galaxy, experience life as it was meant to be. But it also means we are vulnerable, capable of both good and evil." Lieutenant Zaranexis stepped forward. "We can help you. We can work together to understand this new reality." The Queen nodded. "We would like that. Together, we can explore the galaxy and find our place in it." As the Valari and the humans began to discuss their future, Leo felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had made a choice that would change everything, but it was a choice that felt right. The days that followed were filled with discovery and learning. The Valari, now mortal, began to explore their new world. They learned about their past, about the ship that had brought them to Tyasia, and about the technology that had kept them trapped for so long. Leo, who had once been an outsider, found himself at the center of this new world. He became a bridge between the humans and the Valari, helping them to understand each other and to navigate their new reality. As the weeks turned into months, Tyasia began to change. The gardens, once a place of reverence and mystery, became a place of wonder and discovery. The Valari, once statuesque and silent, became living, breathing beings, full of flaws and strengths. And Leo, the human boy who had once wandered into the gardens like an interloper, found his true home. He was no longer just a boy from a mining colony, he was a part of something much greater. The story of Leo and the Valari became a legend, a tale of how one boy's choice had changed the course of history. It was a story of freedom, of discovery, and of the power of choice. As the years went by, the galaxy changed. New worlds were discovered, new civilizations were encountered, and the Valari and humans worked together to explore the unknown. And Leo, now an old man, looked back on that day in the cavern with a sense of pride and wonder. He had made a choice that had sparked unimaginable panic, but it was a choice that had also brought about a new horizon, a new era of peace and discovery. The gardens of Tyasia remained, a reminder of the past and a symbol of the future. They were no longer just a place of reverence but a place of hope, a place where the impossible had become possible. And as the sun set on Tyasia, casting a golden glow over the gardens, Leo smiled, knowing that he had been a part of something truly special, a new beginning, a new horizon, and a future filled with endless possibilities.